All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to get started. I will call the February 26, 2025 Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting to order. Dahlia, if you would please call the roll.
Members, please make your selections on the tablets. Members, please press present on your tablet.
Good afternoon. Do we have everyone registered?
We're missing 2 more members. Chair, we have a quorum with 11 members present and 5 members absent.
All right. Thank you, Dahlia. All right. With that, let's move to non-agenda public comment.
Cameron Hamidi, please make your way to the podium.
Hello, Chair Ela Rivera and board members. I have a slide. I don't know if I can put it up, Chair, with your permission. Okay. Last meeting, if you recall, we had the budget director here, and he made a really interesting comment. He said we have $100,000 in interest that's been allocated to taxis. But as MTS knows, I've been looking over 20 years of financial documents with a microscope. And just looking at last year, I wasn't able to see $100,000. It's actually the next page, $100,000 line item for that interest. If you look here, these are all the income items, and nowhere, for example, on other income, it says $100,000. On $1 million or 900,000, that's a lot of interest. The federal funds rate was about 4 to 5% at the time, and we got 10 to 12% of interest. So I would ask that MTS elaborates on how the taxicab budget gets interest, where it comes from, and where it is in the financial documents, because I've looked all over and haven't been able to find it. And finally, a second point is that I think the CEO directed there to be 2 ad hoc committee meetings for the review of the financials, because there's a lot of people upset. 225 people signed the online petition. They want their money back. And a better way, which we had before, which would increase transparency, would be to have a standing finance subcommittee. I've been on that subcommittee in 2011. I believe my father in the 1990s was on that. And that's a much better way to make sure that everything is transparent and everything is on the up and up. Thank you, Chair.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
All right. Thank you for that. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 3, which is approval of our minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Mr. Tayson, thank you. Got a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second? We've got a second from Mr. Waso. Are there any questions or we need public comment on the minutes? Dahlia, do you want to let me know if there's any public comment on our minutes?
We do not have any.
All right. Any questions or comments from members? Seeing none, go ahead and call the roll. Voting screen should be activated, right?
The motion passes with 11 members voting yes and 5 members absent.
All right. Thank you, Thalia. All right. That brings us to agenda item number 4. I will hand it over to Lenny to provide a presentation on the 2025 maximum rates of fare.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Untitled Chapter. I am the For-Hire Vehicle Administration Manager, and I will be presenting the agenda items for today's meeting. Next item would be the 2025 maximum rates of fare, which are as follows. They're on the screen. There was a slight increase on the consumer price index, which is the method that we utilize every year to determine the change on the maximum rates. That's part of the attachment of the agenda item. The change was slightly higher for 2024, and that resulted in an increase, as you can see, for the per mile rate and the per hour weighting. The methodology is included in the attachments. It's pretty straightforward. You just got to punch in some numbers. So that being said, we are going back to the rates that we had in the prior year, 2023, due to the inflation in the rates and the change within the consumer price index. That being said, the flag drop remains at 380. The per mile rate will be, there's a slight increase that results in 10 cents. And the per hour weighting after we do the methodology is up $1. For those vehicles that do have a point of sale that are equipped, for those taxi cabs that are equipped with a point of sale device that's connected to the meter, they may charge 6% more. This is in our policy, and this is to incentivize technology equipment in the taxi cabs. And those vehicles that are equipped with that type of technology are able to charge 6% more, resulting in the amounts that you can see. I do need to stress that the adoption of the 2025 maximum rates of fare are optional. Every year we have misinformation going around that these rates have to be adopted by the taxi cabs permit holders, and it's not true. Only in the event that the rates go down, then that new rate would become the maximum fare. And in that case, then every permit holder is obligated to adopt them. But because in this case, it went up, albeit not significantly. In this case, taxi drivers cannot, it's optional for them to adopt. So most drivers right now, they shouldn't have this rate. They should have the rate program, the 2024 rates. But now, because it went up, again, in this case, it is optional for permit holders to adopt them. They're not obligated to change those rates unless they want to. Again, at the discretion, they may continue to utilize the 2024 rates, which are less than the 2025 rates that we just published. If that's the case, then there's no additional steps that are need to be taken. Many stakeholders that I've spoken to in the last weeks prior to this meeting are expressing that they will not adopt the maximum rates because they want to remain competitive with other modes of transportation. If that's the case, again, no changes are needed. But for those permit holders that do want to increase those rates to the 2025 rates, those changes to the meters must be performed by an authorized taximeter or service agent. We have a limited number of taximeter service agents. Mr. Taysom is one of them. I think Mr. Magine and Yellow Cab, they have another service agent, but those changes need to be performed by an authorized service agent. And to finalize that change, it's the responsibility of the permit holder to complete their taximeter registration and certification process like every year with the San Diego Department of Weights and Measures. So that's an annual process that's conducted with Weights and Measures, that regardless of any rate change, you have to go through that process with Weights and Measures. So that being said, if there are any questions or comments to the 2025 rates of fare.
Thank you, Lenny. Do we have any public comment on this?
We do. Cameron Hamidi, please make your way to the podium.
Hello again, Chair and committee members. A lot of people have been upset that it goes down 10 cents, it goes up 10 cents. They got to change their cars. last May, we spent 3 hours in this room on an ad hoc committee for flat rates, and nothing is even mentioned about it anymore. It was supposed to be on this, it was promised to be on today's agenda. An alternative that I asked the chair to look out for is a proposal, which will be a petition to change the rates for airport dispatch and any dispatch that wants to do it, to slightly increase the flag drop and lower the per mile rate. So longer fares are charged a little bit less and shorter fares are charged a little bit more. Right now, when you take a taxi from the airport to Harbor Island, it can be as low as $9. And that's, everyone has said for a long time, that's extremely unfair to drivers to wait 4 hours and then take a fare for $9, $12 on the meter. So that needs to be fixed. And I urge MTS to find a better way. We did a study, which was an excellent study by Mr. Fewell. I can only imagine how much time he spent on it. Every other city has a better method than what San Diego does. And it includes a flat rate or somehow charging a little bit more on the flag drop and lower per mile. This taking up 10 cents, bringing it down 10 cents is just getting everybody upset. So I ask that you be on the lookout for the proposal headed to the board for a better way for airport dispatch, and optional, any other taxi cab company that wants to do it, they're more than welcome to do it. It's a free country. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Orozio Sanchez, please make your way to the podium.
I thank the board for having us here today to make comments on this proposal. My name is Horacio, operations for Flywheel Technologies. For the taxi rate, we've taken the position that we will hold the previous rates instead of going to the new rate. And what's encouraging is that the group here is wanting to increase the earnings for the drivers, especially with, cost of living being a big factor. For us, our goal is to have more trips for our drivers, not just a rate increase, but more business, and being able to remain competitive in the space would help in that aspect. Being able to have like the gentleman before us, a flat rate from the airport would be beneficial for the drivers, because now they know exactly how much they're going to earn, at least minimum, when they take a trip. Right now, it's kind of all over the place. Drivers can sit there for, a couple of hours and make $10. And, that for them, it doesn't really help them all that much. So, again, encourage that the board is, really trying to make it easier for the drivers. If there's anything that we can work on to develop flat rates, or even upfront pricing, where the passenger can accept a trip based on a negotiated rate with the driver, that would definitely help us help the drivers. Thank you for your time.
Next is William Allo. Please make your way to the podium. William, please make your way to the podium. Yes, William Allo.
Good afternoon. My name is William Alozi. I'm a cab driver. I stand here to reject the last issue that was discussed, and we want to suggest possibly that MTS should help us erase that of the discussion, because this is the implication. Raising our meter even by 1 cent, just like the previous time it was announced on the radio and on the TV, and that has a greater impact on our business, because the customers see us as the highest taxi rate in the city or in the country. So we will not support any idea of a rate increase on taxi cab meter, whether it's 5 cents, 2 cents, or 1 meter. Leave it where it is. We're even contemplating getting it down to match our competitors, because this gimmicks is probably to offer the other competitors the idea that by the time we increase our rates, it will be on the news, and then the customers will be cushioned develop the wings now to understand the fact that when they increase their own price, now they are justified. So we want to suggest that the taximeter be left where it is. Rather, the last time we had a discussion on the flat rates, you guys should bring it up and have a vote on it now, since the last time there wasn't enough people to vote on that issue. Thank you.
Henry Agel, please make your way to the podium.
Thank you. My name is Henry Ago. In our last meeting here, if I can recall vividly, what we talked about, the concern was about flat rate. But just as the previous speaker said, we didn't have enough people here for the vote. Now, where is this idea of increasing our meter? Increasing our meter sincerely will put all taxi business, will put us out of service. We won't have anything. Unless if you guys want to know that people like us who have been in this business since 1994, one of my greatest regrets is that I'm in taxi business. Since 1994, I know all these gentlemen, look at their faces, even when they are drivers. And look at me at this age. I don't have anything to show for retirement, and I have 4 wonderful girls. How will I take care of them? Since 1994, my colleagues who worked in UCSD, they all retired, left with good sum of money. And I'm still here struggling about fair increment, rate, and no rate. Please, what you guys can do for it to give us flat rate for fares originating from the airport. That will help to solve, for instance, all those short haul going to Charity, going to Harbour Island, Shelter Island. People won't do that anymore. The short haul will not take place anymore. Secondly, all the fares, the cities, this flat rate we're talking about, so many years ago, Seattle, they have it. Los Angeles, they have it. So many city airports
Your
around
time has expired.
Such idea that we know is good. Why is it difficult for us to implement?
Thank you, sir.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
All right, thank you so much.
Oh. Chair, it looks
Yes.
like we have one that's was just submitted.
Okay.
Yep.
And gentlemen, my name is Tariq. I'm driving a taxi about 7 years. So the reason, even for this flat rate, I went to LA, I bring receipt, I give to MTS officers. Most of the time, as you know, we're waiting about 7, 6, 9 hours to get one ride. After one ride, most of people, they park their car around the airport. They just want to pay $10, $8, $6, ask us, okay, have a good day. Or when the Uber rate gets surcharged, they make us to take them out of the airport. So from outside, they take their Uber cheaper. They make us to pay us $5, $6, $7. So that's like automatically it works on your mind. You get mad, drivers, everyone gonna get mad. If we have a flat rate, something like that, like other states, other cities, so it's not gonna, you will not gonna see any complaint, and we're gonna be happy with it. We work well about that. So that's all. I just want to mention that it's good for the drivers and good for MTS and airport to not get complaint. I know you're gonna get a lot of complaint. When drivers get short fare after 9 hours, they give them $5. Automatically, if you want to control yourself after 8 hours, you cannot pay your gas, you cannot pay your insurance, you cannot pay for MTS or airport. So that make you to get mad with them. And you make customers mad too. So my request is that, so flat rate is okay, but we don't want to raise our rates. It's already too much. When we go longer fare, so next time we're not gonna have that customer again with like a $4 or more than that. So the customer will never take a taxi. Say, okay, it's for 20 miles, they're gonna pay about $80. So my request is that just we wanna do the flat rate. It's good from airport special. So that's all. Thank you.
We have one more commenter, Will from United Taxi Workers. Please unmute yourself now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I actually just had a question. I came in only at the end of the presentation. What is the effective date of this new rate? Yeah, Lenny, if you have that answer.
Probably more appropriate for one of the members to ask the question, which will be happy to do once the public comment period is over.
Okay.
Rather than the back and forth now.
Thank you. That was it.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Okay. All right. With that, we will begin our member conversation with Mr. Zici. And as a reminder, the button on your little dash should light up your mic, and that will allow me to call on you to speak. Great. Thank you.
Yes, I think we have to revisit the whole system of having the CPI be the setter of the rates, because the logic of that, if you think about it, is just going to keep going up and up and up every year. It might be one year you have some decrease, but the logic of that is the rates will just keep going up no matter what the market is. And I think that's what drivers are responding to, is they're the people that are doing the business and they know the marketplace, and yet they're subjected to this automated thing that's to the CPI, which makes it simple, but it doesn't, the logic of it isn't realistic in terms of our society. Is you end up, if you haven't priced yourself out of the market now, you'll price later on, and that's the ordinance. And so there's no, for the drivers who are the ones who have to make a living, you're taking away the determination of how that goes. And I know everybody can say, well, you can charge anything you want to, but if you listen to the guys at the airport, they don't want a bidding war in the line. So that logic is there. If you're out on the street doing hail and if you're doing prearranged rides, you can set the pace. But there's a meaning to the maximum rate for the majority of our drivers that is eluding them because it's some automated CPI thing. So I think in order to really give voice to recognizing what the marketplace is in any particular year and how our drivers want to respond to that marketplace, we have to get away from the CPI and have a different type of discussion. Now, I will observe that flat rates gets around that somewhat, is because now you have a range that everybody can understand. It makes sense. You got to have a minimum rate short range. You're going to pay for the long range. You're going to give out more money, so you can discount that a little. That has a logic for the drivers. And this is really all about the drivers. We're here to facilitate the people who are actually driving for a living and their businesses. So I think we have to rethink the method and let the drivers respond to the marketplace and not be tied to the CPI, which is bound to just price us out of the marketplace sooner or later. That's the logic of the CPI. So I would just offer up that I think this is not a good system for different reasons for different people. But yeah, I think everybody agree that it's not very good. Well, maybe if everybody doesn't agree, I'll just say it's not very good. That's my comment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Zici. And we'll now go to Mr. Abraham. You're on.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we're doing is this ordinance has been here for 30-something years. This was when the tax industry was in a good position, because the cost of living was growing and was adjusting the price of the fare. Now, it's irrelevant to go up with the fare, and there are competitors, so there is nothing we can do, which is 1/3 of the price of the taxi. That's why we are losing business. So to discuss about this one every year is wasting of time. Nobody's benefiting. But because it was there for 30 years at the ordinance 11, now we're discussing. There is nobody who needs increase in this tax industry. So what to do what? Imagine with the one we have, we are losing fares. There is no taxi driver or investor in this business surviving anymore. But to have just a meeting, because it's been as a custom for years, that's what we are doing here. Unless there is nothing. Forget with $4, you don't get a fare with $3. So this one, it's simple and it's dismiss it, and we have to deal with the condition what is in the floor, was over and left. And most taxi companies now, are adopting Uber and the Flywheel for $1.50, $10. So do you think anybody will come to the taxi for $4? I don't know what the reason coming to this board to discuss about this one. There's nobody interested. And the place we have to dismiss it and cancel it forever, this one, till business is getting better. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now go to Mr. Wesa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. I think this has been with us since 1991 forward. And we keep having the same discussion. And I think people don't understand that the mechanism is only a guideline. We don't have to abide by it. It's just a guideline. That's the maximum you can charge. We have this conversation every year with industry members. And there's a lot of flexibility for you guys to charge anything under that. Flat rates. I heard Flywheel, a representative for Flywheel speaking on behalf of that. You can charge a flat rates. You can charge anything you want under that. I think that's just a guideline that we have continued to use because we haven't come up with anything better. Several of these committee members that are at advisory level, we've always resorted back to this system because we have never agreed with anything else. So unless you guys want to prepare something and we develop a meeting where everybody can agree on a different system, I think we're going to come right back to this next year and do the same thing. It's just MTS puts a guideline there so we as representatives of the industry or operators don't go over that, so that the consumer knows, what the rules of engagement are. There are other transportation providers already in the city providing flat rates, providing surge pricing. I mean, we have that opportunity to do that ourselves. You just have to agree on what format we're going to use or what radio services are already using, a format that it's feasible for their dispatch systems, and drivers are embracing that. So I've had conversations with a lot of operators, and I see there's a lot of opinions out there, but we can't agree with one universal theme. So till we agree with that, I think the system is the best we got, and we just have to advertise to operators. It's not the law, meaning it's the maximum. It's a ceiling guide. You can charge anything under that. And that's where we're having a problem communicating to some of the representatives to understand that. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Majid.
Yes, everything I wanted to say, Tony mentioned, every year we have the same confusion. People automatically assume that they have to jack up their rates to the maximum. This is just going to the flat rate side of this thing. How is this cap preventing anybody from creating their flat rates, assuming that your flat rates are below that maximum cap? We don't need Lenny to create us flat rates. We can all do it today. I do it all day long. We can all do it, provided that you don't exceed that maximum limit. I don't think that business decision has to be made by Lenny here. Every company can create their own flat rates, however they want to charge, assuming they're not exceeding that maximum limit. But if the intention here is to create flat rates that exceed that maximum limit, you're already priced out of the market. So you're going to further price yourself out of the market. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny, did you want to respond to the question that was asked via public comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. The maximum rates are effective today. Every year we publish them at the first Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting, so the rates are effective today. And just under a minute to add context to the comments that Mr. Majid and Mr. West provided, it is just a ceiling. Our counterparts from other cities are adopting the maximum rate, their own version or their own report of their consumer price index. So some other cities calculated, they have their own methods. Some of them are by consensus with the industry. I think Mr. Wessel mentioned that in the years that we've had the privilege of working with this industry, we are yet to find consensus on what a maximum rate should be. We found that the consumer price index takes into account everything that has to, and by the way, this consumer price index is tailored to the transportation industry, and furthermore, is tailored to the Southern California in San Diego region. You can see on attachment C of this agenda item that itemized report takes into account the many factors: gas, vehicle repairs, vehicle parts. That is tailored to the transportation industry. And again, based on that methodology, we believe that is the more fair and transparent way to determine these fares. And finally, we always repeat this: the adoption of these fares is optional. Optional. The drivers are not obligated to adopt the maximum fares. For some reason, again, unbeknownst to us, how that misinformation goes out there, or the assumption that they have to adopt those maximum fares. They do not. It is just a ceiling for consumer protection purposes. And I hope that brings a little bit of clarification to our method. Thank you.
Thanks, Lenny. I think one thing I will say that I heard, we'll go to Mr. Seifu. Oh, apologies. Will you hit the button again?
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So I just want to address it to Akbar and Tony Hueso's comment regarding why the drivers are not charging flat rate based on these numbers. The issue is that most of the customers going below the rate that the driver were asking, which is at least $25, $30 within a minimum range, a minimum fare. So if we're going to charge this customers within the current amount, so it's going to be below that amount. And the drivers are looking for to compensate their time waiting for 6-7 hours at the airport. And if they're going to go far away, we're okay because you're going to make more money. But if it's going to go within a few miles from the airport, then that means the driver will make less money. So they want to find a way how they're going to make this thing make more sense to the driver. So again, we were talking about this issue for almost a year about having a certain amount of flat rates within a certain radius of the airport, which Uber, by the way, is doing it. We want to apply the same thing. So we want to see if that's going to apply. And then it maybe lower the rate for the customers who are going far away from the airport. So you see a lot of drivers speaking about this issue because we were requesting about this item to be for discussion and for approval, but we have not seen any major progress made on this issue. So we want to go back again and ask this question: what's the status of that request? Last time we did a study and we still have not seen any result of that study. Again, you see a lot of drivers today, they want to hear something positive regarding this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The one other thing I was going to add was, I think something that I heard for the first time today, and I think I've been paying attention in other years, was the idea that the public hears that the rate has gone up. And so an unintended consequence of raising the rates, even if everyone can keep them lower, is that the public has heard that taxis are getting more expensive. And so there's not really much we can do about that. I don't know if there is a way, Lenny, as these are being published, to alongside that information, remind people that the maximum rate is rarely charged, something to provide some context. Because I do think that made sense when I heard that public comment. We announced this, the media just reports what is told to them, and everyone kind of just unconsciously digests that taxis have gotten even more expensive. So is that, as the information is disseminated, is there any additional context? And then I'm happy to go to Peter and David once you've responded.
Thank you, Chair. No, there is not. However, we are taking notes as far as that. We just published, the agency publishes the maximum rates of fare as it is. But as far as context, that is optional. We do not have context by the way we currently publish those rates every year, but we will certainly look into that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Zici and then Mr. Tayson. I believe.
Yeah, coming in your comment, I was going to bring in a recent article from the LA Times with this big headline about Lyft and Uber raising their rates 16 to 17% and how it might impact their sales. So somebody makes news out of Uber and Lyft, and maybe that's correctly so. I don't know if MTS raises taxi rate 10 cents needs a headline in San Diego, and I'm not really aware that many people are tuned into out there in the San Diego region are waiting to hear what our new taxi rate is. So I'm not convinced that the news of it is really going to be like it is for the LA Times when they put a headline article. I think the bulk of the base of our market is at the airport for most drivers. So I think what you're going to hear from people who are operating at the airport is what works for them. Not what the hail ride might be on 39th and Market or something like that on Tuesday afternoon, but the day-to-day way of which most drivers are trying to make a living, maybe 75%. I think that's what we have to sort of figure out, and I think that's where the demand for the flat rate that you're hearing is coming from, is because that's a particular market, and that particular market, due to a lot of bad circumstances, is a big market for taxi drivers. So I understand in the past it's worked. I have no problem with that. And I'm not even arguing. I understand, I think many people understand the possibility of lowering the rates. I don't think they agree with it. I don't think it's that they don't get it. I think they don't like it for whatever reason. It's not that they're stupid and they don't listen to, they don't know that thing. They don't read that. It's not like they don't know that. It's that that's not the way they want to operate for whatever reason. So I think part of us not responding and just saying, well, we've been doing it for 30 years. And if you want to come up with something better, I think the flat rate system was an attempt to come up with something better. And I think people are sort of waiting for us to put that on the table and see if we could work on something better. I think that's the ask. The bottom line ask is, can we open it up again after 30 years? Can we open it up again and take another look at it? Because the marketplace right now for the taxi industry is much different than it's been for the last 25 or 20 years, that's for sure, when there wasn't Uber and Lyft weren't around. So, yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll go to Mr. Taysom, Mr. Wason, and then we'll wind this one down.
Yeah, the problem, this is not just a small problem with the rates of fare and everything else. This is now a problem with the airport. And with them opening up the medallion system to everybody, since before we had the capability of having multiple fares come out of the airport, 5 to 6 a day, before the system changed at the airport to where they opened up the medallions. I'm glad they opened up the medallions, but I think when they reopen up the new airport terminal, I think they should reevaluate the medallion system and reissue medallions based on A/B system so that we can limit the taxi cabs at the airport, which would create more business for the taxi cab industry as well as the street traffic.
Thank you for that. Mr. Wason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think if we can add a caveat to the application process when people are applying for a permit, that the business model, best business practices are something that all businesses, supposedly, we all should practice. And if we don't practice them, there are consequences. And this is one of them things that where you give advice or direction to people. If we put it in print, maybe in the application process, what type of charging system they're willing to operate under, knowing that there's a ceiling. So you can get some of that information exchange going already, starting with new members, because I keep hearing that the airport's open. Yes, it is. The permit process is open. We still keep getting players into the marketplace that are interested in working the marketplace. But the business practices that I see are yielding a negative effect because the type of model people are choosing, it conflicts with what you're trying to do as far as revenue. Example is at the airport, drivers are driving 2 or 3 cars to operate at the airport. I mean, to me, I think if you're paying double insurance, triple insurance, and you're going to profit from one more trip or two more trips, that's quite an investment. I think people are waiting, but us people that operate call centers, we're limited because we depend on drivers to log in and to operate under the investment that radio call centers do. There's quite an investment that's made, but if we don't have the audience to direct them calls, it's fruitless. It's an investment that goes nowhere. So we see that some of the business practices being utilized at the airport are, let's serve the airport because that's where the greatest concentrations of consumers are, and that's correct. However, that leaves other markets that are not being served. And some of us that are still operating call centers and having some success at it are drawing from some of the resources out there that are paying drivers an income. But not everybody's embracing that. So if we're going to have a conversation, it has to be very broad, not limited. We are limiting ourselves to an area that has supposedly high density, but our pricing is not attractive enough. So I'm just stating this because there needs to be more analysis by people that get into the marketplace. Is it feasible? Is it attractive? Can I make money at it? And if I can't, why can't I? How can I address that? I don't see that happening in our marketplace with drivers. They're thinking in other terms, and that's where we need to guide people in the sense of, but if they don't listen, I mean, what good is it?
All right, we're gonna thank you, Mr. Weiss. Just for the sake of being able to move through the agenda, we're gonna move on, especially because this is an information item. There isn't an action here, so I want to make sure that we're able to get through as much of the agenda as possible, given that we have a hard stop. So let's move to agenda item 5. Lenny, if you'd like to introduce that item and begin your presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda number 5 has to do with the TAC membership. First and foremost, I'll cover this here in a little bit, but first and foremost, I do want to introduce our 3 alternate members that were appointed for the remainder of this TAC term. They're sitting already here at this table. Mr. Gonzalo Ayala for the permit holder category of 1, Mr. Fabiano Sarmiento, lease driver, and Mr. Boris Masarski that had to leave, but he was here a minute ago. I started with the introductions, and now in context for the TAC membership, which is comprised of 16 members. The chair, which is a member of the board, our organizational members, the San Diego Convention Center, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, San Diego Airport, the Gaslamp Court Association, Cross Border and Express, and the United Taxi Workers. And also by 6 Taxicab permit holders in good standings. For those seats, 4 representatives with only 1 permit, 2 of those seats for representatives with 2 or more taxicabs. And there's also a category for 3 taxicab lease drivers that are in possession of a valid sheriff ID. The current TAC term for lease drivers and permit holders is due to expire this June. The election process for the 2025 and 2028 TAC term will be held in upcoming July 2025, and we will provide more information and instructions at the next TAC meeting, May 28th. To include potential outreach ideas. The election will be held online voting. We adopted that method the last 3 years, and it proved to be really convenient for the drivers and for the people who self-nominated. Permit holders who wish to participate in the upcoming TAC election must ensure that their emails are up to date with FHVA. So anybody, again, that's our primary method of communication. If anybody's interested either in self-nominating to be part of this committee or to submit a vote, please ensure to provide us your most updated email information. That way we can reach out to you via email at around June. There is a setback. We do not have lease driver information. That's lease drivers deal directly with the San Diego Sheriff's Department, and unfortunately, they don't have a field to capture emails. They have all other types of information, but not email information. So we do ask any lease driver who wishes to participate in the upcoming tax collection to contact our department directly and provide their email. I'll be reaching out to our airport partners for that outreach. And also asking permit holders who deal with lease drivers to pass the word on, and that way we can have a robust database for lease driver participation. Currently, there were 3 elected representatives that no longer meet eligibility, the requirements for the following categories. There was one vacancy in the permit holder category of 1 and 2 vacancies in the lease driver categories. Per our Taxicab Advisory Committee guidelines, the Chief Executive Officer designee or TAC can make an interim appointment if a member seat becomes vacant within the 3-year term. And I'm so glad and grateful that these 3 gentlemen decided to be appointed and were appointed and decided to accept that appointment to ensure that we meet quorum and that we have robust participation in this Taxicab committee. So again, Mr. Gonzalo Ayala appointed to the seat, vacant seat of permit holder of 1 permit. Heritage Cab, Mr. Boris Masarski, that unfortunately he had to leave, but he's a lease driver for USA Cab, and Mr. Fabiano Sarmiento, lease driver for Jesse Cab. I should add, gentlemen, you have extensive experience as permit holders and drivers, and you meet eligibility criteria for the remainder of the term, and you are invited if you wish to participate in the upcoming elections. You're more than welcome to do so. That concludes Agenda 5, Chair. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Lenny. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
All right. I'm not seeing any member comments. So thank you, Lenny, for the not just the presentation, but the work on this. You and Samantha both. As always, really appreciate everything that you put into these items, even when the conversation isn't as robust as the last item. All right, let's move to agenda item number 6. If you'd like to introduce that one and get started on the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda number 6, for hire vehicle administration required driver training. Per ordinance 11, every driver of an MTS permitted vehicle must successfully complete an MTS approved driver safety course. That driver safety course covers various aspects of the for hire vehicle industry, the rules of regulations, crime prevention, customer service, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Sheriff's Department will not grant a sheriff ID enabling the driver to operate that vehicle unless the driver presents proof of completion provided by FHVA. We provide that training at least twice a month via Zoom. There is a $30 administrative fee that covers the time and the prepping for that meeting. And drivers are required to complete the driver training at least once, but under different circumstances may be required to retake the training. I would assume most of these members have at least at some point taken that training. If you're familiar with it, if not, I can certainly go into the details. We are requesting feedback from this committee and any other interested stakeholder on possible improvements to the driver training program, including its content and in the current delivery method. Any updates to this driver training program? It's the aim of those updates would be to provide drivers with the most current and relevant information to assist them in compliance with rules and regulations, the for hire vehicle business trends that I think Mr. Wessel alluded to a little bit ago, and other topics that enhance the safety of the driver and the passenger, and overall the passenger experience. For hire vehicle administration will provide the members of this committee and any other interested stakeholder with a copy of the driver training program via email, which consists on a slide deck that we present during the actual training that includes a live meeting with one of our regulatory inspectors, involves a Q&A, is very interactive. We received positive feedback from many drivers as far as the experience and the certification that they are granted once upon completion of that program. But as we mentioned, we are looking for ways to improve both the content and the method. Also, if any member of this committee is interested to attend one of our driving sessions via Zoom, that way you can see how, if you want to refresh your knowledge on the industry, or if you would just like to partake and get more details on what that experience is like, please reach out to me and I will make sure that you are extended with a meeting link. That way you can attend that meeting. You can reach out to me in person after this meeting or anytime by sending me an email or giving me a phone call, and I will make sure that you are sent an email link to participate in an upcoming driver training session. During this time, we will be taking feedback, and anytime after this meeting, we will evaluate the feedback and determine the appropriate updates to the driver training program. That concludes agenda number 6, Chair.
Thank you, Lenny. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
We do not. All right. I do not see any requests from members to speak to this item. Thank you again for the presentation and your work on this one. That brings us to agenda item number 7. Lenny, if you would please introduce the item and begin your presentation there.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda number 7 covers autonomous for-hire vehicle operations. And I'll start by giving a definition of what autonomous vehicles are, which are self-driving vehicles that transport passengers for hire without a human driver. There are over 24 autonomous vehicle companies worldwide. The most prevalent are Waymo, Cruise, Zoox, and General Motors. Waymo is currently operating in California, Arizona, Texas, Atlanta, Florida, in Tokyo, Japan. Currently, Waymo, Nuro Incorporated, and Mercedes-Benz, which is one of these autonomous companies, are authorized by the California Department of Motor Vehicles and the California Public Utilities Commission to conduct for-hire vehicle trips in certain areas in California, including San Francisco and Los Angeles. Waymo, particularly, is currently testing in San Diego, including the San Diego airport, but does not yet have the authorization to conduct, to begin for-hire vehicle operations. That is why you have seen, as members of these committee have observed, these autonomous vehicles at the San Diego airport. However, they're operating at a testing capacity, not, they have not been yet granted permission to operate like they have been operating in LA and San Francisco. At this time, it is unclear how future operations by these autonomous vehicle companies may impact the overall for-hire vehicle industry, and if granted operation at some point, how they may impact the local for-hire vehicle industry. We are requesting feedback on what questions or concerns the Taxicab Advisory Committee may have relating to autonomous vehicle operations in the San Diego region, and whether additional research or next steps would be appropriate to address this emerging transportation technology. That leads us to the staff recommendation on what action would, the action that would receive a report concerning the for-hire vehicles and provide a recommendation to staff on what additional or next step should be conducted. That concludes the presentation on agenda item number 7, Chair.
Thank you so much. Any public comment on this item?
Alam Zabib, please make your way to the podium.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the committee members. My name is Alam Zabib. I do have a question about the what you call autonomous for hire, or Waymo, which is unmanned. Unless you give them a green light, why they are advertising on the city? Because I've seen them roaming around the city and by the airport. We go through a lot of things, like renewing our license, going to the sheriff department, doing a drug test every year, and inspections every year, and we pay our fees. Where do you draw the line about this unmanned vehicle, the safety, and all the pay and all the fee that we paid. How do you compare in comparison? I mean, I'm seeing there, but Mr. Verber is saying that it's not yet approved, but I sense that it's on the way going because they're trying to do it in Los Angeles and what do you call it, San Francisco. And they are roaming around. So how is it going to work? We paying all those fees. How are you going to them? This is unmanned vehicle. You know, what about the safety issue? That's my question. Thank you.
Next is Orocio Sanchez. Orocio, please make your way to the podium.
Hi, thank you, board, again, for having me here. With Flywheel Technologies being based out of San Francisco, we've actually had this driverless vehicles for quite some time. We've been doing quite a bit of analysis on what it actually means to the taxi community and how it affects our business. For now, for the last year and a half, we've noticed that the majority of the business that Waymo does take is from Uber and other ride-share services. Taxi business is not as affected by the driverless vehicles. Again, this is all anecdotal evidence from our company and seeing what it's doing and the types of trips that are being affected. So just want to make sure that we understand, it is new technology. It's always a little scary to embrace that new technology. We see that the public is not adopting the technology as fast as is led to believe. So from our perspective, when dealing with Waymo and the other partners that actually had their licenses pulled, we'll mention them. We've noticed that it doesn't really affect taxi business quite as much as some of us fear that it might affect. Maybe 10 years down the line, when technology is more developed and robust, maybe at that point we can have those conversations. But just wanted to share with the group, from experience, what we've been dealing with at the San Francisco area. Thank you.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
All right, thank you. I'll just make some introductory comments here. I had requested this presentation because of some of the concerns I have about Waymo operating in the San Diego region and the city of San Diego. Believe it or not, the city of San Diego does not have a say as to whether or not these cars are operating on our streets. That's bothersome to me, one, because I'm a city council member and I'd like to have say over these things, but also because of the threats that I see Waymo and autonomous vehicles posing to those of you who have worked hard in this industry for a long time. There are a variety of issues that I have. I'm actually getting the more often I see them on San Diego streets, the more frustrated I'm getting because I'm thinking about it a little bit more. Even if they aren't planning to operate here, they're collecting data, they're driving San Diego streets, using the streets for to produce what will eventually become profit, probably significant amounts of profit. The city of San Diego is seeing no return on that. And again, that doesn't even begin to touch upon the threats that this could pose to you all in the industry. That's why I wanted to begin the conversation. This isn't necessarily something that would show up in San Diego overnight, but we have very limited control, almost none at the local level. And so if this is something that we want to engage on, we should start thinking about that sooner rather than later, because it's not as if the city of San Diego can flip a switch and just say no Waymo here, as much as I might like to do that. So again, wanted to open up the conversation with you all, provide an opportunity for you to engage, provide feedback, ask any questions that you might have, and we'll take it from there. And let's see. First on the lights is Mr. Taysom.
Yeah, I'm looking at this Waymo. I've seen them in LA, and it's fine for LA because it's got the population to handle it. Here, we don't have this big population as we do in Los Angeles. The industry we're in now, our transportation costs are going to keep going up and up and up and up. And Waymo is going to come in with no driver, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Drivers are going to, our system here, drivers get tired. Drivers have to pay for oil and all that stuff, gas, electricity, and everything else. So it's just a competitive industry is not going to be conducive within the county because we don't have the population to handle it. I mean, that's what I'm looking at, and that's what I'm looking at for the future. It's the population. If we had a bigger population, okay, let's let them in. But we don't have the population to handle it. Even if they brought in 5 cars, 10 cars, or 20 cars into the system, it doesn't matter. We're not going to have we don't have the population to handle it, and we have no way to regulate them. It's all state level. So in case something happens, who's going to be responsible? If Waymo's going to come in and say, here's our insurance and everything else? No, they don't have to. Get in an accident with Waymo? Who's going to pay for it? There's no way you get a ticket to the Waymo driver for speeding or for driving on the wrong side of the road or whatever. I mean, there's nothing. There is no regulatory agency that will produce or regulate the Waymo vehicles that we do now.
Thank you, Mr. Taysom. Mr. Seifu?
About if this company, because it did already happen in San Francisco, they already been allowing them since June 2024. For sure, they're going to be here. That's my expectation. Now, my second concern is if they are allowed to operate in the city, especially at the airport, I just want to know, are we going to engage with this company? Because we have a limited space at the airport and they don't have enough parking space. And if this company, or if there is a demand, even if there is a demand from the customers, but because initially it's going to be a free ride. So you might have a lot of customers requesting this ride, then we want to see how they're going to operate at the airport. We don't have airport representative today. I was expecting them to see, but they're not here. So I don't know how things going to be handled in the future.
Lenny, do you happen to know what access to the airport, is that also something decided by CPUC, or is that something that the airport would have authority over?
Well, as far as regulations, they are preempted by the state, and they're overall regulated by the DMV, California, by the Autonomous Vehicles Branch, which does have a public community outreach resource. I can certainly send some of the members that website that allows overall public comment, if you will, in the development of those regulations. Also, the Public Utilities Commission is involved in the regulation of autonomous vehicles when it comes to the operational phase in terms of being able to be for hire to the public. So those two agencies are involved in the regulation of autonomous vehicles, as Mr. Taysom mentioned, at the state level. As far as airport chair, that is a sole discretion. It's at their sole discretion of the airport as how they would allow the accommodations of those vehicles, assuming that they become operational. Right now, they have been spotted, right, at the airport at a testing capacity. And I think some of the members had reached out to the airport, and we made it clear that any decision that the airport does in terms of allowing them to fully operate, or testing for that matter, in the airport property has to be discussed with their ground transportation department directly in terms of where they're going to be along the stage, curbside, or overall operation requirements. So at some point, we would refer those particular questions, Chair, to the airport ground transportation department.
Thank you. And Lenny, just so the committee can kind of think about this as we're having this conversation, there's also actions that we could take here in terms of expressing the opinion of the committee, right? So we could do a resolution or a letter from the Taxicab Advisory Committee, perhaps even bringing that to the full MTS board to signal this the position of the MTS board on this issue as well. But what we need is some level of consensus that we have an opinion and that we care to express it. To your point, if the airport has that authority, this sounds like something that the industry maybe want to begin discussing in terms of, unless you all want more competition there, lobbying the airport to not allow or limit the ability of Waymo to operate on airport property. Those are all things that are kind of in the cards. Again, subject to the will of the body. With that, we will go to Mr. Wesa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I applaud your efforts in bringing this forward because we fell short of that glory when Uber and Lyft came on. No mechanisms were announced, no protection, nothing whatsoever. So I think it's important that we realize that innovation and is going to come in anyways. It's just we have to put safeguards. How does the city benefit? How does the rest of the industry benefit from an additional competitive mode? So I think we should start thinking about this and how can we, from a competitor's point of view, influence our regulators to develop language to make them realize that if they're going to compete, we have to have a level playing field. It's unfair that we be placed in another position like we were with Lyft and Uber. So I think, thank you for bringing it forward. That it's the first time that a council member, I would say, brings something like this to the forefront. Before it was behind the scenes, and here we have an opportunity. So let's move forward with something that's thoughtful that we can recommend to our regulators, not only at our level, which is MTS, it's the city of San Diego, the county, and even the state, because Uber and Lyft were allowed through the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wesa. Mr. Zichi?
Yeah, I would suggest that we start with Chris Ward. Some of us know that Chris used to be the TAC chair. He's now a big player at the California State Legislature, and I'm convinced that whatever we here do locally, I think we're going to need Chris's input as to how we can play with the Department of Motor Vehicles or CPUC, although I'm not very confident about anything with them. But I think Chris could probably, because he used to sit in this room and knows the industry, he would be a good person to sit down and say, okay, the Democratic Party is in power in the state legislature. You're a leading Democrat. You guys brought in Uber and Lyft and put them under CPUC because you thought innovation was just automatically cool. And I have to disagree with the gentleman from Flywheel. Not all innovation in tech is good. There's always a downside to everything. And people will agree with there's downsides to the internet that we have today. Great innovation, but also there's problems. And so I think Tony's right. Let's get in here early and identify some problems, have some conversations and find where are some places where we can have an effect. And I don't think they're all locally, although I would suggest that the city of San Diego look for avenues to deal with impact. It may be that you're not going to be able to tell CPUC what to do, and you're probably not going to tell DMV what to do, but we could talk about what are the impacts and how do we mitigate them and who pays for them. There was about 5 years when the city of San Francisco had a tax on the TNCs and it sunsetted last year, but they did that because they wanted to deal with the impacts of Uber and Lyft in the city traffic in San Francisco. And there was opposition to that. It was controversial, but they had it, and they did it for the reasons of trying to say, okay, what are the limits? What do we do here locally? So I think reaching out to Chris Ward as a friend and of the industry in the past, and number two, investigate areas where we can deal with impact. I think it would be great to come out with a statement from this advisory committee as to some issues that we see and how we'd like the city to deal with this. The mayor can use his bully pulpit to be part of anything that goes on at the state. And I think Todd would be up for that if he was behind it. So I echo the thanks to you to bringing it up. And if there was an ad hoc way to get people together to craft something up that we could all agree would be a statement from the committee, I know that we would participate, and I think that'd be a good idea.
Thank you, Peter. I don't see any additional requests to speak to the item, but Lenny, maybe there's an opportunity for our office to, my office, to continue to work with you. You can see which members of the committee are interested, and at our next meeting, bring some ideas forward. But I would encourage the members of the committee to think about this. And if after thinking about it, you think it's great, that's fine. If you're concerned about it, that's important as well. But what I don't want to see happen is exactly what Mr. Hueso is, referencing, a replay of the past. And let's just, so we're all clear, this has been the game plan from the beginning for Uber and Lyft, right? It was to make drivers obsolete, because when drivers are obsolete, profits can be maximized. So this is the next logical step in what, the now over like decade and a half that you guys have been kind of under assault from technology companies that, from my vantage point at least, are simply trying to make as much money as possible with very, very little to no regard for what that means for you all as human beings. So I'll look forward to working with you, Lenny, and then we'll see who on the committee is interested in participating in that conversation. And hopefully this advisory committee can kind of be out in front to the extent possible on the issue of autonomous for hire vehicles. Thank you again for preparing the item. All right, with that, let's move to agenda item number 8. If you'd like to introduce that and begin your presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda number 8, our usual for hire vehicle operations update. This is a constant item in our agenda where we provide information on our department operation. First and foremost, reiterate that email is the primary method for communication for all purposes. It is the responsibility of the permit holder to check their spam and their junk folders and to adjust their filters to accept for hire vehicle administration emails. We do occasionally get concerns from emails that, from permit holders that they are not receiving emails, only to later find out that they are going to their spam folder. So we do encourage every permit holder to allow our emails to go through to their outbox. Also, per the ordinance 11, a permit holder must notify for hire vehicle administration of any changes in their address, in their phone numbers, and email information. That is a requirement. We do see that, due to many factors, people change their business address, they acquire a different email account, or they just go with a different phone carrier and change their phone. So that's fine, but we do ask for whenever that happens, for you to reach out to us, or any permit holder reach out to our office. I'll provide the contact information for our staff and to let us know of those changes. That way we can maintain communications throughout the year. And also, our staff is available by appointment only, as much as we would like to accommodate everybody's business needs. In order to be more efficient, we do require for an appointment to be made. All calls or emails are returned by the next business day to ensure your appointment. This is the staff information, which is also available in our website. And depending on your business need, you can call any of us. But for a better attention, we listed the staff number that can assist you depending on your business needs based on whatever that would be. For general information, you can always call me and I can direct you to the appropriate staffer. This is an update on the 2025 regulatory fee collection period, which is underway and will end next week. It started January 6th and it will end next week, March 3rd, which I believe is a Monday. And we are collecting payments from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., vehicle inspections, annual statement forms at the following locations. The San Diego Airport, at the airport holding lot, that's where we collect the majority of our paperwork and our payments. This has proven to be a very convenient way for drivers to conduct business with us. Our inspectors are there within these hours, and they look forward to helping you to collect your payments and other documentation. Also, every Saturday for at the 1313 National Avenue, right across the street from this building, where the former Greyhound bus stop used to be at. We will be there for probably another Saturday, but between 10 and 3 to collect those requirements, the payments and the documentation. And we also receive payments via mail or in person at our main lobby, or at the drop box. We have a convenient drop box in our lobby. Also across the street, a couple of blocks from here at our main bus depot, which is the Imperial Avenue Division, where our main office is located.
What time is that again?
Between 10 and 3, 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Tony. And the address is right there. I can send it to you also after the meeting. Also important to note that the deadline to pay the annual regulatory fee is March 3rd. We've collected approximately 70%. However, there's still a number of permit holders that are yet to submit their payments. And by experience, we have a large number of permit holders that do wait till the deadline. After that, if we do not receive the payment by the close of business day, they do still have another deadline for payment, for late payment renewals, which is the end of the month by close of business date. But in order to keep the permit, we would have to charge a late payment fee of $100, which is included at our administrative fee schedule, to process that late payment. And again, no cash or credit cards are accepted. Currently, only personal cashier checks and money orders, which is the payment methods that we've been accepting for the last 20 years. All payments must be via personal checks or money order, as I mentioned. We do have a fee for return payment, which is $35 in case a payment is not honored by the bank. Also, as part of this renewal process, permit holders must submit their required mechanical inspections and annual statements at the time of payment. That proved to be very convenient for both our department and the permit holder, as it streamlines the renewal process. Failure to do so will result in delays in the renewal process. And finally, permit holders do have various options to submit the payment in the renewal process, as I mentioned previously. Another operation update on the finance ad hoc meeting working group that we had last month in January 23. That meeting was by invitation only, and those in attendance included Taxicab, non-emergency medical, and charter vehicle permit holders. The reason we invited them, aside is most of this committee, they're comprised by taxi permit holders and taxi lease drivers. However, for this ad hoc meeting, we included other modes of transportation that are also regulated by MTS, by For Hire Vehicle Administration, and that they also pay their regulatory fees. So non-emergency medical and charter vehicle permit holders were also in attendance. Some of the current members from United Taxi Workers in the San Diego Airport were also in attendance. And we also had regulatory agency representatives from LADOT, from San Francisco Municipal Transportation, from the Sunline Transit Agency, King County Licensing, which are peer agencies that attended the meeting. So for their feedback, we had an at-large member, Mr. Ethan Revelos, who was a former Taxicab Advisory Committee Chair of the San Francisco Municipal Authority with extensive experience in the industry. And also in attendance were MTS Finance and For Hire Vehicle Administration staff. During the meeting, we provided a presentation on our department budget and our contingency reserves. The regulatory agency representatives shared information on their agency's budgeting and contingency reserves program. Overall, we requested feedback to all those who attended on and how those agencies develop their annual budget and regulatory fees, and also what other considerations and factors should for-hire vehicle administration consider when we develop our own annual budget and regulatory fees. We proposed a second meeting to be determined to review the potential staff recommendations on guidelines for hire vehicle administration to develop a contingency reserve target. We will provide a full report on those findings at a future TAC meeting. This is our a snapshot on our current vehicles, our current numbers, which we're over 1,700 all combined between taxis, NEMs, and LSVs. When we take into account the percentage of those vehicles that are under voluntary surrender, meaning not on the road, which is a considerable amount compared to previous months. This depicts our field enforcement and the contacts that we have per city, along with citations, warnings, and field reports. And just to remind the committee that our field enforcement main duty is to ensure compliance and public safety. And we focus on providing an educational opportunity for drivers to correct any violation in lieu of a citation or anything else. As far as contacts, for the last 3 months, we had a majority of contacts with the NEMs, a substantial number of taxi cabs, and percentage-wise to the permits that we have, very low numbers for jitneys. We only have 2 jitneys operating and 40 LSV vehicles operating in San Diego. The majority of the warnings involve not having or not wearing a sheriff ID. That's a very simple compliance rule to abide by. So we do encourage permit holders to wear that, to display their sheriff ID with pride, and also your name tag, because it is an ordinance violation in case it is not displayed. This is a comparison for our customer feedback cases for the last 3 months. The only section that we are glad to see go up is the compliment section, and I think that's what happened. We did get many compliments for our drivers, and we do acknowledge that. We reach out to the driver, we reach out to the person issuing the compliment, and we encourage our drivers to continue their good customer service. And and all those other ones that continue to be present always, the rule behavior overcharge cases, we also follow up with those with the drivers and investigate those customer feedback cases. And this is our overall snapshot of the TNC trips compared to the taxi trips at the San Diego airport. Throughout the year, we can see that the trend was constant, and with TNCs continue to be the choice of travel for airport originated trips. And that concludes the operations item. Chair, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. Any public comment?
We do not.
All right. Looks like Mr. Taysom, you are on the lights. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want, can you pull that back up for a second there, the trips from the airport, please? Okay, I've seen that number going down. The taxi cabs are going down on the numbers. It used to be 50 to 60,000 per month. Now it's down to 27,000. That is, we're looking at people, you're asking us to increase the meter or give a flat rate, whatever. We can't support it because look at the numbers now. The numbers used to be at 50,000 a month per taxi cabs. Now it's down to 27,000. Why? It's because we're not dealing with the customers. You keep saying the meter is the Bible. The meter is not the Bible. It is a guide. It has been a guide for 30-something years. And you know better what I'm talking about. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to other drivers in this industry. Nobody sits here and says, well, we should have flat rates. Well, look at the numbers. The numbers are going to go down again unless we change the way we do business at the airport by accepting flat rates, by making deals with customers and say, hey, can we go to the border? Fine, $40, let's go. Instead of, yeah, Mr. Smiles, please don't smile again until you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mr. Taysom,
Yes, sir.
not, yeah,
No, I'm not attacking you. I'm just looking at him smiling at me and it just, oh, bull.
all right. Mr. Taysom, do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Lenny, thank you for the presentation. I just will remind all of the members of the committee just to keep the conversation productive, which it overwhelmingly is. All right. I don't see any additional requests to speak to this item. That brings us to item number 9. Lenny?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Agenda item number 9. We'll cover the topics for the next Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting taking place May 28th. We are now requesting feedback on what topics should be addressed at the next Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting. Currently, our staff recommends the following agenda items: the upcoming Taxicab Advisory Committee election and another for hire vehicle administration update. We are open to feedback on any topic that this committee would like us to consider, including in the agenda. You can provide it now, or you can always submit that feedback directly to my office via email, in person, or by giving me a call. We will take notes and then we'll discuss it with the chair and staff and determine what to add to the upcoming agenda for the May 28th Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting. That concludes this agenda item, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Lenny. Delia, any public comment on this item?
We do not.
All right. We'll begin committee discussion with Mr. Majid.
Yeah, so one thing I want to add to the next committee agenda is going back to the history, the airport pre-TNCs at any given day allowed 150 vehicles to operate at the airport. Keep in mind that at that time, we were pretty much the only source of transportation with exception to the shuttles. And they had an augmented program that if there was a need, they would allow an additional 30 vehicles per day, totaling 180. Now, based on your numbers that I see here, out of the 725 active permits, I think there's 600 permitted vehicles, and every single one can operate at the airport today. And as a result, that's where all the complaints are coming in, that I'm waiting for 7 hours for a trip. And I think this current open system of allowing all vehicles to operate at the airport every day is obsolete. It's time for the airport to revisit this and maybe go back to those old scheduling that we used to have, or some new mechanism where the drivers are not wasting 6, 7, 8 hours for one trip, or however number of hours that they're spending there. I know this body does not have the authority to make those decisions, but this might be a good venue for the conversation to start.
Thank you, Mr. Majid. Mr. Zichi.
There's going to be a meeting I think tomorrow, with a group of drivers at the airport who want to talk about an AB reinstituting the AB system, day on, day off. So I think the conversation is starting, not here, but outside here. And I think people are probably going to focus their attitude on the airport board. I think people can bring this to the next meeting, but I know there'll be several meetings of interested taxi drivers between now and then to do exactly that, to reinstitute an AB system where people can spread out the work and take up some of the other work that Tony spoke to. There's other markets. And for people who want to pursue those other markets, I think there's ways to do that. So I think we'll probably be able to, we may want to schedule something just to hear by then what's going on, and hopefully Michael will be here and can be part of the conversation representing the airport. So good idea. I think the drivers are ahead of us.
Thank you, Mr. Zichi. Mr. Wesa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To highlight something that Mr. Akbar said, we met with the airport last week. We had a meeting with them. There's no airport representation here, so I can't, in other words, validate totally, but this was an information item. We had some of us would double charge, triple charge on our airport fees. There was a big problem at the airport with their new software that they had implemented, and it created some problems for us. We were having problems communicating. The airport responded by saying they're understaffed, number one. They're not attracting any new employees, and they're looking towards renewing people's permits in batches because they can't accommodate so many people that they have. I did make that suggestion that maybe you should revisit that issue, but that's not something they visit. The board does. So that would have to be presented to the board as far as limiting numbers or using another mechanism because they are having problems with employees. So it is a time to revisit it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, appreciate the feedback there. That brings us to agenda item 10, which is to see if there's any committee member communications or other business. Do we have, there's no public comment on this one, right? Okay. Just making sure. Doesn't look like we've got any comments on item 10. That brings us to number 11, which is our next meeting date. As you heard, that will be May 28th, 2025 at 1 p.m. And that brings us to the close of our meeting. Thank you, everyone.